Did I have some hard questions?
Sometimes they're the hardest.
作为 IMF 历史上首位女总裁，拉加德的人生由许多个第一组成。国际著名律师事务所贝克麦坚士第一位女主席，法国第一任女性及任期最长的财长，国际货币基金组织第一位女总裁。一头标志性的银色短发，一套简洁干练的香奈儿套装，再配以自信的微笑，这个在国际舞台游刃有余的法国女人，为世界女性领导力添上了一笔浓墨重彩。她怎样看待中国经济改革的挑战？她如何管理世界最有权势的金融俱乐部？这位律政俏佳人为何能够屡次转型成功，并兼顾工作与家庭？
You are the first women boss on many positions. What's your special weapon?
I don't think it takes weapons, but it certainly requires a lot of hard work to begin with, a lot of resilience, good health, and a lot of support from your family, your friends, your community, because it's not easy. Not easy to do all these jobs one after the other, and yet have children, have a family life. So it's not just about me; it's about the team and everybody helping me doing it.
So you have 2 children, right?
Yes.
Yeah. How old are they now?
27 and 25, so they are young men. Except when things go wrong. In that case, they come back and they are young babies.
How do you balance family and work?
So it's difficult to do both, and you cope, and you struggle, and you try to plan your day, your week, your month, and it's always difficult, and you feel guilty because you felt that you should have done certain things better and you haven't had time. But at the end of the day, I think it's a question of, number one, organizing yourself, planning, and being prepared with delegating and accepting that you cannot do it all at the same time to perfection.
If you had a daughter, what would you want her to be?
Herself, whatever that is. But I would certainly insist on her getting the best possible education so that she could be independent and not dependent on anyone.
拉加德17岁那年，父亲去世，母亲支撑起了整个家庭，她也从此变得坚强起来。1981年，25岁的拉加德加入了大名鼎鼎的贝克麦坚士律师事务所，从实习生做起，并用了18年时间做到了主席一职。拉加德的才干引起了美国和法国政府的注意，先是美国政府邀请他入职遭到拒绝。2005年，在时任法国总理德维尔潘的盛情邀请下，拉加德担任法国政府部长级外贸代表，并称报效祖国的时刻到了，从此正式步入政坛。
I knew that you had quite a bumpy road to fit into French government. And how did you change things around you then?
I was a little bit of an outcast when I joined the French government. I was drafted by President Chirac to be the trade minister. But I did not belong to the institutional base from which politicians are drawn to government. And as an outcast, I came with the rules from the private sector, with the thinking of the private sector, with the methods of the private sector, and I changed a few things. And people found me different, but I insisted on making sure that there was diversity and that new rules could apply as well as the traditional rules.
You talk about the private sector. How did your skill as a lawyer help you?
I was trained as a lawyer, and I think that the legal training, which requires analytical skills, the use of narratives, the art of convincing, the ability to take defeat with good spirit, the need to work with associates, to build a case, to work on a merger or an acquisition, to be very thorough in doing due diligence. All of that has helped me throughout my life, my professional life.
You were like described as anglo-saxon sometimes by French citizens. So how do you feel about that?
Well, I was often called the American when I joined the French government, because people thought I was, coming from another place and operating in a different fashion. But it's good because, diversity enriches enriches the environment, brings new ways of conducting business, new ways of rallying support, new ways of operating. So I kept that as an asset and not as a burden on my shoulders.
How do you compare France and the United States in terms of business and the political environment?
I think it was Oscar Wilde who said about the United States that it's a nation that has youth for tradition. And I think there is an element of that in the way the United States welcomes innovation, accepts failure, and constantly sort of rejuvenates itself. On the other hand, it has little by way of history compared with European countries, particularly France, which is the country I know best. That gives you an idea of how different it is.
Can you let me know how did you make your decision to go back to DC, to the IMF, and what have you brought to the fund and changed it?
All changes in my professional life have been dictated by circumstances. Meeting people, being encouraged to do certain things. I was a practicing attorney, and the management of Baker McKenzie was going through a tough time. I was called upon to serve as member of the executive committee and then chairman of the firm. I was then later drafted, literally, by President Chirac, and after I had served as Minister of Finance for France, circumstances were such that people asked me to campaign and to become the managing director of the IMF. So it's, every turn in my life has been predicated by circumstances, the influence of people, and I rarely thought twice, and I never planned ahead of time. So it's been an interesting journey.
You think what are you different from your predecessor?
Well, I'm a female and they were males. I think that's a big difference.
Beside that?
Beside that, I think as a woman, I think I bring certain things that I could summarize as the willingness to listen before I draw conclusions, the desire to reach consensus with others, the hope that the team enjoys working together and working with me eventually. I think maybe a focus on people more than numbers, but that may have to do with my academic background as well.
不久前 ，IMF 发布世界经济展望报告称，由于欧元区持续疲软以及主要新兴市场普遍增长放缓，将对2015年全球经济增速预期下调至3.8%，并预计2015年中国经济增长将放缓至7.1%。主要原因是中国经济向更可持续的路径转型，同时房地产投资进一步放缓。拉加德也多次在公开场合表明，需要通过大胆的政策来避免全球经济增长陷入新的平庸状态。
There has to be a new momentum. A new momentum that will consist of putting a set of bolder policies together in order to overcome what I would call the new mediocre. And that's a risk if it stagnates as such, if we have this horizon of new mediocre.
We have also now alerted to the potential risk of recession in the Eurozone, and I think that risk has been identified as a probability of about
well, 35+%, anywhere between 35 and 40%, which is not insignificant. We're not suggesting that that zone is heading towards recession, but we're saying that there is a serious risk that that happen if nothing is done.
而无疑，中国经济增长是全球经济复苏的重要引擎之一。上半年 ，IMF 总裁拉加德到访中国3天，会见了中国国务院总理李克强、央行行长周小川等多位高层领导人，并在中国发展高层论坛期间3次发表演讲。他对于中国改革及中国全球角色的期待不言而喻。
IMF warned about the shadow banking system and local financial vehicles as early as 2010. Do you say things are moving toward the right direction?
You know, the shadow banking has developed almost in the same sequence as regulations and supervision has increased. And that is not only specific to China. It has happened in the same way in the United States. And clearly, it can be beneficial, but it has to be checked and it has to be controlled and it has to be supervised, because it does, significantly increase the monetary mass and has to be checked.
So how to weigh in between loss recognition and financial stability?
You know, the rules of the market imply that you win, but you also lose. And the fact that there has been, and that there is, and that there will be some default, on reimbursement of bonds, for instance, lately, is actually a good indication of what markets actually do. They're not only upsides to those market operations, there are downsides as well. And people have to measure and assess the risks associated with the financial operations that they're doing. You cannot go into bond buying or internet banking without understanding that there are risks associated with it. And the fact that those defaults have taken place is, however difficult it is for those who take the loss, it's a healthy movement in our view.
As you just mentioned, internet banking and we call it the P2P financing are booming in China. Any lesson can be taken from financial innovation?
Financial innovations can be good, but they also bear risk. And I think it is the understanding of the risks associated with financial innovations that needs to be flagged, that needs to be explained, that people need to be cautious about. And the internet banking is one good example of a fast spreading practice that people have to be cautious about. Trees don't grow up to the sky.
China's central bank is pushing interest rate and currency rate liberalization. People debate about the speed, the pace, and the sequencing. What's your take on this issue?
It was very good to hear from Governor Zhu that the interest liberalization would take place in the next couple of years. This, in our view, is helpful. The internationalization of the yuan would certainly also be a good project to be had in the same period of time. And if that turns the renminbi into a currency that is included in the basket of special drawing rights issued by the IMF, the better.
The IMF and China do not always agree with each other. So how do you describe the relationship between them? And what should be done to improve the cooperation for the two sides?
It's typical of friends to not constantly agree with each other. And it's because we are friends and partners that we have a rich dialogue that sometimes results in disagreement, discussions, But we've always managed to resolve those issues through a good dialogue, and I hope it continues.
自1945年设立，国际货币基金组织 IMF 在过去70年中屡屡扮演国际经济、金融危机救火队员的角色。自2011年上任以来，拉加德统领着欧洲3驾马车之一，救危机深重的欧洲各国于水火。3年来，爱尔兰、葡萄牙、西班牙等国逐个毕业。
Countries including Ireland, Portugal, and Spain are coming out of bailout programs. So how do you see the developments?
Well, some of the Eurozone countries that were, and for some of them still are under program, are either graduating from those programs or will be graduating from those programs. And hopefully they will be able to finance themselves, to go back to markets, which they couldn't do. And their current situation has improved. If you look at the yields, if you look at their bond issuance ratings, the situation has significantly improved. But, you know, as always, there is still much to be done. No time for complacency, no business as before, but certainly a new way of conducting business, a new way of designing policies, and of adjusting to the monetary order.
And so looking forward, how to balance between fiscal responsibility, growth, and job creation?
The key objective is job creation, because we still today have over 200 million people unemployed, and particularly in some countries, young people under the age of 25 that constitute the bulk of the unemployed populations, and that is just not acceptable. So fiscal policies, if we have in mind consolidation and growth, are not mutually exclusive. The key is pace, particularly in the advanced economies. There cannot be very strong and hard consolidation and the hope that growth is going to pick up. So there has to be the right pace of consolidation, the right medium-term anchoring of the expectations in terms of fiscal policies, and growth-friendly measures at the same time. But it's not any type of growth. It has to be the kind of growth that generates jobs, so that people can find a job.
So the balance is about the pace.
You know, you don't have so many levers, and time and pace are the two levers that you can actually use to adjust your fiscal policies within a monetary environment.
How do you see the developments in Ukraine?
We know for sure that it will address the exchange rate of Ukraine, it will address the fiscal policy and the fiscal path the country has to take, and it will certainly also look at some of the structural reforms that are needed for Ukraine to pick up a growth path.
It's going to be very, very hard, a big challenge for.
It is a challenging situation because the country has tried for quite a few years, but now certainly the Ukrainian people have the benefit of a platform which has economic, political ramifications that could be for the better for them.
The 2010 quota reform was just blocked by the US Congress. So how will you keep your promise on IMF reform, and especially on that to the emerging markets?
It's a very important project. It's one that was decided collectively by many countries, particularly all the G20 countries, one for which the deadline was 2012, and one where the membership has not been able to complete the job because one key member is still considering instead of completing. It's the membership's responsibility, but equally, I'm very concerned that we can achieve that reform, because it's a matter of credibility for the institution, it's a matter of delivering on a promise that was made to all members, including the emerging market economies in particular, because they have to increase their quota, they have to increase their voice, and it is a key reform that needs to be completed. But there is only so much that I can do. I can, explain, I can preach, I can brief, I can implore, I can cajole, I can be upset. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the legislator of the country that decides what is in the interest of the whole community, which is what is at stake there.
But do you think, is there still opportunities or very few?
I think there is a window of opportunity in the next few weeks, and I hope that materializes. If it doesn't, we'll have to, look at the options and see what is best for the IMF.
We were very impressed by your speech about the new multilateralism in London.
Well, globalization has been a blessing for many countries, one of which is China. China has had the benefit of the opening of trade, of the access to world markets. It joining the WTO has certainly been a breakthrough, and millions and millions of people have been lifted out of poverty thanks to those changes. And that has happened to many other countries. Liberalization of trade, opening up of barriers, removal of tariff and non-tariff barriers, all of that has been beneficial. Equally, there has to be a governance that adjusts to this globalization of trade, of finance, movement of capital, movement of people. And this is a process that is ongoing, where national authorities have to not only be mindful of their domestic market, but they have to be mindful of everything else outside their domestic markets. Because whatever is decided at home is going to have consequences elsewhere, which will in turn sort of bounce back to the home market. So that's why I think that a new multilateralism is called for. One where countries actually listen to each other, appreciate and measure what the consequences are of their domestic policies, and where the IMF can play a significant role in measuring what we call the spillover effects, and in giving advice that is not just predicated on the domestic factors, but also what happens elsewhere in the world.
So where do you see yourself after this job?
Well, I want to do this job first, and then we'll see about the rest.